Jessica, I'm coming to you. Now, you've been in the game for a while. You've been working to advance LGBT rights internationally. Can we talk about international partners and the role that you see that they play within all of this?
We can.
Let's do it. Want to use the podium? Go for it, go for it.
I accidentally dropped the mic, so I'm going to call that a mic drop. Thank you, Malusi. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you. And thank you so much to Annika, Malusi, and Pamela, and everyone from the Southern African Litigation Center for the invitation to be here today. I just want to start out by acknowledging the significance of the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a document that states, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. I think it always has to be said that this also includes LGBTQI plus persons around the world. And it pains me that 75 years after the establishment of the UDHR that we're still making that argument. So we know that there's a lot of work yet to be done to realize its promise, but there's an incredibly strong and intersectional foundation to build upon, for which I'm very grateful. So Ben and SALC asked me to speak a little bit about backlash. And so I want to engage with that question by asking, why do we see such serious backlash against LGBTQI plus movements around the world? And I want to make an argument to you that part of the reason for the instrumentalization of LGBTQI plus people's lives is because our movement is winning. Of course, we know that the anti-rights movement is pushing hard, but I think they are attacking LGBTQI plus persons because we are destabilizing the status quo. We are increasingly visible. We are ending the unacceptable standards that many of us have spent our lives living with. And because we are convenient scapegoats, distracting from other core human rights abuses, poverty, and corruption. Just think for a moment about the changes that you've seen over your own lifetimes. And you know that our progress has been real and our progress threatens them. So I want to give some examples of success. Once, our organizations were underground, but increasingly today, LGBTQI groups are visible. When they try to silence us, we sue for legal recognition, and we win. So kudos to Legabibo in Botswana as one example, who we saw in the beautiful video earlier, and Nagelherk in Kenya as inspiration. Our movements are increasingly mastering complex parliamentary procedures, assisted by organizational experts, and finding the legal tools to block discriminatory campaigns. So in Ghana, for example, the anti-LGBTQI plus bill received a second reading in Parliament, and we don't know how this struggle will end. But the movement has won time to organize, to coordinate, and to defend itself, and even build new organizations and alliances. And building off of what Kapia said, just 2 weeks ago, the Catholic bishops in Ghana spoke up, reversing their position, and now stating that LGBTQI plus persons in Ghana should not be criminalized. That did not happen in a vacuum. That was the result of activism. And we also see progress in the court. In August, I attended the Pan-African ILGA conference in Mauritius and spoke about decriminalization with activists and with the government. And so it was a thrill to see the decision that Mauritius decriminalized homosexuality in October. And I don't know if you read the court's ruling, but it stated in unequivocal terms that the colonial-era sodomy law did not reflect Mauritian values. So moving from our successes, I want to talk a little bit about some of the myths that we hear about LGBTQI plus people. I think the truth is that the more we become visible, the more anti-rights actors are exposed. And we know their lies. Many of us, when we came out, may have even struggled against their lies ourselves. So let me name a few of them. One that we hear frequently is that LGBTQI plus people are pedophiles. This is false. Most child molesters target children of their friends and family, tragically, and the majority of child molesters are men married to women. But if we look more deeply at the structures that tolerate child sexual abuse, we know that we have to engage with the realities of patriarchy, child abuse, the disregard for the views of children, and the acceptance of sexual and gender-based violence. Those are the root causes of pedophilia, not LGBTQI plus persons. A second myth that we hear is that LGBTQI plus rights are special rights. That is also false. As the UDHR states, all human beings are born equal, free and equal in dignity and rights. And to be clear, when we demand recognition of our dignity, we demand no more nor less than heterosexual or cisgendered persons, simply to be treated as human. It can be difficult to talk about the lies that are said about LGBTQI people. It's not fun to say them out loud, especially in a room of survivors and experts like this one. But I think we need to state the lies so that we engage more substantially in how to counter them. So I want to build off of Adrian's point and look a little bit at Uganda as a case study of both the lies and the response. So take that second myth, LGBTQI plus rights are special rights, and turn it on its head. In fact, supporting the human rights of LGBTQI plus persons does not diminish the rights of others, but actually may expand their rights by demonstrating the need for protections for those who are vulnerable. So let me give you some examples from Uganda and the AHA. Uganda held an election in 2021 that was violent and marred by irregularities. And shortly thereafter, the US government announced a visa restriction policy targeted at those who were responsible for undermining the democratic process and urged the government of Uganda to hold them accountable. Then in 2023, Ugandan LGBTQI human rights defenders called the world's attention to the Anti-Homosexuality Act. But significantly, those very activists did not say, we want special rights for ourselves. They said that to understand the Anti-Homosexuality Act and the targeting of LGBTQI people, every Ugandan's human rights would have to be respected. It's good to applaud for good things, absolutely. But what's really important, and this was, I think, one of the questions that Ben and SALC put to us, is do governments listen when civil society speaks? In this context, I'm happy to say that Ugandan activists articulated their asks so clearly that it became easy to take seriously their recommendations, and we translated their views into policy. Let me give you 3 quick examples. Last week, when Secretary Blinken announced that the United States was expanding the US's visa restriction in Uganda to also include repression of marginalized or vulnerable populations, he explicitly mentioned a wide array of vulnerable individuals, including environmental activists, journalists, human rights defenders, and marginalized populations, yes, including but not limited to LGBTQI plus persons. Let me give you another example. When Ambassador Tai, the US trade representative, announced that President Biden had terminated Uganda's eligibility for the African Growth and Opportunity Act, she noted that the decision was based on gross violations of internationally recognized human rights, including but not limited to the AHA. And when the United States released a business advisory to illuminate the potential risks to conducting business in Uganda, it identified the AHA as increasing restrictions on human rights, including freedom of expression in the broader environment, including but not limited to the targeting of LGBTQI people. So when you hear that LGBTQI people are only fighting for themselves and only asking for special rights, you know that the data doesn't support that allegation. I want to wrap up by giving one more example of how we address the myths. So go back to that first myth, that LGBTQI plus persons are predators. The anti-rights movement is turbocharged when they speak about the protection of children, and rightly so, because children need to be protected. And the parents in this room know that there is nothing that a parent won't do to protect their child. But when the predator lie takes root, truth struggles to triumph. And the reason for that is grounded in how we as human beings develop our ideas and beliefs, either maintain or discard them. The most fundamental beliefs are grounded in limbic emotions, the sort of lizard parts of the brain beneath rational consciousness. Limbic emotions like fear and anger and happiness and love cannot be countered with rationality. You cannot argue someone into loving you. But we can call on all of those emotions to advance respect for our human rights. When anti-rights actors call us predators, they're deploying fear and anger. And every parent immediately thinks, not my child. So how do we counter these myths? We must respond with love. Parents who love their LGBTQI+ kids see through these lies. So too can siblings and grandparents and cousins and friends. So to defeat the backlash, we must broaden and deepen our network of allies and advocates. When we can come out to those who love us, to ask for their support, and to activate those powerful emotions to our benefit. Think about it. Love is our superpower. And so I'll just end by saying, I think that there's one thing that LGBTQI people have learned, and that is to love ourselves and to love each other. And therefore, love is one resource that is abundant in this movement. And so I look forward to discussing how we can deploy love to lift us all up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I mean, with that mic drop, I don't know what more I can say on this stage.